I am always looking for new different horror stories, because I am very fascinated about horror, and I got this story from my friend. It is an Indian true story about her village. So this one story my grandfather told me is a crazy long one, but worth to hear, and worth me being told this story
endless times.
My grandfather has been a farmer family brought up lad. So when he was very young, he used to come to his farm with his grandfather. They had a little watchtower sort of establishment made of wood, just near to the middle of the field to keep a check on the crops. Now daily my grandfather's grandfather used to keep a small bunch of fruits, grains etc. at the near end of the stairs of the tower. My grandfather was curious and asked his grandfather that why is it there. His grandfather used to just pat his back, laugh and would say pray to God, that you don't get to know why. My grandfather used to accompany his grandfather daily to the tower and would return before sunset. Once on a full moon night before the sunset, my grandfather and his grandfather was sitting on a tower and watching the field, when suddenly a herd of cows ran into the field. My great-grandfather rushed down to wade them away, telling my grandfather to stay in the tower. He did not return for 2-3 hours at least. It was way past sunset now. As it happened, there was a ruckus in the village, as to whose herd of cows it was, and it made my great-grandfather simply forget about post-sunset deal. As soon he remembered, he ran towards his field. My grandfather was calmly sitting in the tower. When my great-grandfather came, he looked at the grains kept at the end of the stairs and told my grandfather to come down. My grandfather was having the time of his life, and reluctantly told him to come up since it was already night, and that he can stay till morning. Now no big deal. My great-grandfather then shouted at my grandfather to come immediately down. It was very unusual for him to be shouting like that. And then my grandfather was so afraid that he started stepping towards the stairs to come down when he saw a big animal running from one patch to another patch in the field, grunting as that animal came to the next patch. It turned into a swan. And another patch it turned into a dog. Though the transformation was not visible, but it being a full moon night, it was enough light to see a cow, bull, sort of animals suddenly getting into the field first patch, and flying out a swan, and then swan into the second field patch, and dog springing out till the second last patch. And this went on until the dog, on coming to the last patch, turned into a woman, and came out of the field very heroically. She came just down the tower, and started mincing her teeth in anger, and just kept staring my great-grandfather very viciously, and kept signaling my grandfather with a long-elated finger to not come down. She kept on saying things in our language, but very broken and hardly understandable to my great-grandfather to leave, and made this guttural sound that big cats, dogs or wolves make while showing their teeth, when they seem to dislike something. My great-grandfather suddenly spoke in a very distorted tone in my language,
to let me be his prey.
To which the woman straight away shrieked a deafening amount of rage-filled scream that my grandfather got on the wooden floor and covered his ears. He could still see the contorted face of my great-grandfather, melting into a ghoulish avatar with pitch-black holes for eyes, and a longish mouth. And that thing simply ran away in the opposite direction, on all fours at an inhuman speed. I saw the woman now going back towards the middle of the field, and sitting down and out of my sight. My grandfather suddenly made the courage to call out for my great-grandfather, to which he was replied back by a loud scream, as if to keep him quiet. Some 15 minutes into the horrifying field watchtower with strange inhuman voices and howls coming from all directions, my grandfather finally saw my great-grandfather coming back into the field, towards the tower with a firelight in hand, and came running up the tower. He certainly looked very worried and horrified when my grandfather told him what had happened. He waved a thank you gesture towards the field area where the woman I told him went, sat and disappeared. When suddenly we both heard clanking of the bangles, we both saw the woman rising up in the field and disappearing, and in few seconds a mouse drove up our tower, and my great-grandfather took the mouse into his hands, and bowed to him, offered it all he had to eat, and then thanked it multiple times for saving me. Went on to wait till morning to tell me that the one entity my grandfather saw that looked like my great-grandfather was a
Wendigo,
which we call Brett in our mythology, and that he came to hunt me down and would have definitely taken me with him. My great-grandfather has seen this Wendigo a lot of times, but him being always up the tower was safe, and that is the reason he never allowed my grandfather to stay the night in the tower, because kids are the Wendigo's favorite preys. And the woman is actually a very native and good spirit that has guarded our farmland from generations, all in return for a bunch of fruits, grains, every night. The reason the Wendigo could not enter in the tower, because he saw the offering being made to this nice spirit, and it's a mark of her, its territory, that the Wendigo could never cross. The offering is still made to this day by my paternal uncles and will be made by generations to come. It is the rule, and that's how I know about these entities. In my case, between the woman strangely resembled my great-grandfather's wife, who passed away way before my grandfather's birth, and I have been told it sometimes takes forms of different people in my family that have passed away, in a way to show us that she and those family members are to protect us. My grandfather on his last trip to our farmland, when accompanied by my uncle on the tower, saw a glimpse of his son and my dearest late father in the field, who had passed away some years before. It's heart-melting and also warming and warning. I did go to the tower as well, but wasn't fortunate enough to see my father or it despite staying the night. But the grains, fruits are still kept today.
this is your speaker, Siraj. If you want more stories like this, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you.